Science informs us. It doesn't tell us what to do. Scientists all over the world have worked for many years, studying all aspects of climate change and trying to understand how much of the change is caused by human activity. Global warming means that average surface temperatures around the world are rising, and as a consequence, the climate changes. The climate is a long-term pattern of weather. As a result of global warming, the patterns change. The changes affect mankind and nature in many ways. More extreme weather events, such as heat waves and heavy rainfalls, have occurred, and they're likely to occur more often in the future. Similarly, more ice is melting, and therefore the sea level is rising. Millions of people are in danger from rising sea levels and extreme weather events. Poor people in poor countries are the most vulnerable. They usually depend on traditional ways of living. Some plants and animals can't adapt to the changes. In some places, people will be forced to move due to drought and flooding. Many people in relatively cold countries prefer a warmer climate and will prosper from it. The costs of heating buildings falls. In areas with sufficient water and nutrients, the crops will give better yields as temperatures rise and the growing season becomes longer. Forestry, too, will benefit from faster growing trees. The warming also benefits the health of people in some regions. The atmosphere contains greenhouse gases. They're called this because they function like the roof of a greenhouse. They trap heat and keep our planet warm at stable temperatures. The balance between energy coming from the sun and energy leaving the Earth is finely tuned. Man-made greenhouse gases change this balance. More heat is trapped and the Earth gets warmer. The most important greenhouse gas produced by man is CO2. The main source is the use of fossil fuels such as oil and coal. And because of human activity, the concentration of CO2 has grown by 1/3. Most of the global warming observed since 1950 is due to man-made greenhouse gases. Scientists are now saying that it's extremely unlikely that the warming is only a natural variation of the climate system. Once emitted into the air, CO2 doesn't disappear. Some of it will stay in the atmosphere for thousands of years, continuing to cause warming. This warming spreads through the water masses of the oceans, causing further rises in sea levels that will last for hundreds of years.
You want to go away with a pleasant memory of cruising up there, but not a painful one, especially on your toes.
If emissions of greenhouse gases continue at present levels without new and additional policies, the world is on track for a warming of more than 4 degrees Celsius. The negative impacts will grow. Some climate change processes take just a few years to evolve, while others, such as ice cap melting, may take centuries. All nations will have to adapt to future climate change, and some of them won't be able to cope fully with the problems.
Water and energy security, to our public health and food production, from our environment to our biodiversity.
The impacts of climate change vary widely according to local conditions. For temperature increases of 1 to 3.5 degrees Celsius, the impacts will mostly be positive in some places and mostly negative in others. The negative impacts are worst in tropical, subtropical and polar regions, whilst positive impacts are more common in temperate regions. At about 2.5 to 3.5 degrees Celsius, though, it's very likely that all regions will experience more negative than positive impacts. At about 4.5 degrees Celsius, the global economic cost could be anything from 1 to 5% of global gross domestic product, with larger percentages in developing countries. Net benefits mostly occur in wealthy countries. These countries can often afford the adaptation needed. However, poor countries will need financial aid to do this. Between 75 and 250 million people are projected to be affected by increased water shortages by 2020. The yield of rain-fed crops could be halved in some African countries, and water shortages will trigger further climate changes. By the end of the 21st century, large populations living in low-lying coastal areas risk being severely affected by further rises in sea levels. Less fresh water is projected to be available in Central, South, East and Southeast Asia. Heavily populated megadeltas will be at greatest risk due to increased flooding. The pressure on natural resources and the environment due to the rapid growth of cities, industries and economies is also projected to increase due to climate change. In sites with rich wildlife and vegetation, such as the Great Barrier Reef and the Queensland wet tropics, significant loss of biodiversity is projected to occur by 2020. By 2030, water security problems are expected to be aggravated in southern and eastern Australia, and in Northland and some eastern regions of New Zealand. In Europe, increased risk of inland flash floods, coastal flooding and erosion are among the negative impacts. Mountain areas face glacial retreat. In southern Europe, high temperatures and drought are projected to reduce water availability, hydropower production, summer tourism and crop productivity. By the middle of this century, the tropical forest in eastern Amazonia is projected to be gradually replaced by savanna. In other words, less trees and more grass, because of higher temperatures and less moisture in the soil. Melting glaciers can cause water scarcity, and the productivity of some important crops and livestock is projected to decline. Cities in